Promise.
Well, that got hot, huh?
Yes.
Here's another testy exchange. This got hot, too, between the president's budget with Wisconsin Congressman Republican Paul Ryan and Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner. This all happened late yesterday afternoon. Here is a sample, and listen and watch closely.
We help lower the trajectory of cost growth in the outer decades that comes from millions of Americans retiring, but we still would face, even with this framework, more work to do on that long-term demographic challenge.
Well, bring up slide 13, because I just don't see the rhetoric matching the results. And I'm looking out of your budget, page 58 in Analytical Perspectives. You say that this is your budget, says that the government position gradually deteriorates, that our fiscal condition deteriorates. These are your numbers.
What it shows, Mr. Chairman, is
your deficit path.
Good chart.
Your debt path.
And it shows just exactly what I said.
Our government is making promises to Americans that it has no way of accounting for them. And so you're saying, yeah, we're stabilizing it, but we're not fixing it in the long run. That means we're just going to keep lying to people. We're going to keep all these empty promises going. And so what we're saying is, in order to avert a debt crisis, I mean, you're the Treasury Secretary of all. If we can't make good on our bonds in the future, who's going to invest in our country?
And it went on from there. Paul Ryan, Republican out of Wisconsin, chairman of the House Budget Committee, back with me this morning. And, Paul, it's good to see you. Good morning to you.
Hey, good to see you too, Bill.
I thought the phrase that stuck out the most when I heard that was when you said we're lying to people. Explain that.
Our government is right now, according to the General Accountability Office, making $99.4 trillion in promises to today's Americans that it has no way of paying for. We're making $37 trillion in promises to people for just Medicare alone that we have no way of paying for. What's happening in Europe is it's a bunch of governments and politicians from all political parties who have made all these empty promises to voters that they have no way of paying for those promises. And so the point I'm trying to make, Bill, is we need to be straight with the country about our real fiscal problems, tell people the honest situation, and then come up with solutions to make sure that these empty promises are replaced with programs that provide real security that people can actually count on, and we're not doing that.
Well,
and they're just
some of these
sweeping it under the rug.
Budget numbers, they'll blow your mind. Let me get to those in a moment. What did you think of Geithner's response?
He's good at testifying. He's good at making sure that you have no YouTube moments, I suppose, even though you just put one of those on. He's a smart guy, but he doesn't want to really face up to the fact that their budget really does nothing to improve our debt situation. In fact, their budget tries to claim credit for past laws, for the Budget Control Act. When you strip away all the budget gimmicks and the accounting tricks, and Tim knows this literally does almost nothing to deal with our debt. Instead of the debt going up 78% under the president's budget, it goes up 76%. So literally doing nothing, just stopping Congress from doing anything, our debt will go up 78% according to the president's budget. But under his budget, according to his budget, it goes up 76%. So that's what's so amazing to us. It's a budget that has net spending increases. He spends an additional $1.5 trillion over the next 10 years. But because he raises taxes by $1.9 trillion, it's the only way you can claim you have about $400 billion of deficit reduction over a 10-year period. A $47 trillion budget over 10 years.
Do I have
We're talking
the
about like
number
an
right?
average of debt. What's that?
It's $11 trillion in debt increase over the next decade.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
How do you get your head around that?
It's tough for people to put their minds around these things. The problem is those debt levels that we're talking about, they're worse than some European countries. You know, they get to the levels of where Greece is. And so we're saying, look at what's happening overseas in Europe. They're immediately pulling the rug out from under seniors. They're cutting benefits on retirees after they've retired. They're cranking up taxes and slowing down their economy. They have a youth unemployment rate around 30%. So this ought to be a cautionary tale to us. And so what's really frustrating and disappointing to us is we have a president who, for the fourth budget in a row, literally is not proposing to do anything about it. And that's what is unconscionable to us. So we're putting out budgets to fix this.
You know, from the outside looking in, it appeared about a year ago that everybody was breathing fire on this issue. Now it's just folks like you.
I know.
I mean, what changed in Washington?
An election's coming up. And the president, I think he mentioned it once in his State of the Union address, the debt. The biggest threat to our economy today and to our children's future is this fiscal problem, this debt. And here's the issue, Bill. The sooner we deal with it, the better off he is. Because if you keep piling up more debt and keep kicking the can down the road, then the end is that much more uglier. Then you have to have sudden, urgent cuts and tax increases that hurt the economy, that hurt seniors, that hurt the safety net, like you have in Europe. And we need to avoid that by stepping up and leading and putting out, fixing this thing. And the president has punted on the issue for the 4th time in a row. And what's really frustrating is the Senate hasn't passed a budget for 2 years, and they already announced they're not going to do a budget this year, again for the 3rd year. And the law says we need to pass a budget every year. So that's what's so frustrating about this bill. And when we put out solutions, all we get are negative advertising, demagoguery, and finger pointing.
Yeah. You wrote this week about the illusion of fiscal responsibility. I wonder if people get it. You have 3 kids. What's their country look like in 20 years?
This is what motivates me, Bill. I mean, look, the point knowing these numbers and knowing where the country is heading, and knowing that my kids who are 7, 8, and 10 years old are literally going to have a lower standard of living, a more diminished future than what we have, that's an irrefutable fact based on where we're headed. And we've always had this tradition in America where you leave the next generation better off. It's, that's the American idea. And we're confronted, this generation of leaders is confronted with the fact that we might sever that American idea, and we need to step up to the plate and fix this problem. And so since the president's ducking responsibility, the Senate isn't even on the field, we feel obligated morally and legally to give the country a choice. Let the country in November, because it's going to have to come to this now, let them choose what path they want for America. And that's our obligation.
And we shall see months to come. Paul Ryan, thank you. We'll talk again real soon, okay?
You bet, Bill. Take care.